Florida Governor and presidential hopeful Ron DeSantis announcing his plan to roll out his mission-first military policy during a press conference. He's in Columbia, South Carolina, the state capital there. Let's listen live.
And what happens is you have people from all walks of life. You go through the same cauldron, and you come out Americans. You come out fellow Marines, you come out fellow soldiers, fellow sailors, and there's a unity that goes into that when you have that American flag on your shirt, on your uniform, that's really, really meaningful. And I think that military ethos, commitment to service, that transcends any differences that we bring to the table, whether ethnic, religious, whatnot. We're all pulling in the same way. And I think that was the ethos that I remembered in the military. I think clearly you go back in the past, that was what the ideal was. And yet, we're now in a situation where we find ourselves seeing the military go down a very different path. It's a military that has been ordered by civilian officials to pursue political ideology, to pursue social experimentation, to be yet another institution in American life that gets infected with the woke mind virus. This is changing the character of the military, it's changing the culture of our services, and it's creating a situation in which great warriors have been driven away, and recruiting is at an all-time low post-abolition of the draft and the Vietnam conflict. There's reasons why that has been the case. If you look at the threats that this country has from China, for example, when China sees the Navy, for example, using drag queens to recruit people, they are laughing in our face. When you see some of the nonsense that's gone on in the services, these are things that would have been unthinkable even 10 years ago, much less in prior generations. Our enemies are whetting their appetite. You know why? Because they're seeing America take its eye off the ball. They're seeing America pursue other agendas at the expense of our nation's security agenda. So we need a military that is focused on being lethal, being ready, and being capable. And if there's anybody's agenda that gets in the way with that, that agenda needs to take a hike. And that's what we're going to do. So our mantra on January 20th, 2025 as Commander-in-Chief will be very simple. Mission first. Accomplish the mission. That has to be the sole focus of everything we do, and that's going to require us to go in and overhaul how the military has been running over these last few years. Yes, under Biden, but a lot of this started under Obama many years ago and has continued to progress very, very aggressively. So we're going to come in and we're going to take very swift action to right the ship, restore us to where we need to be. And you know what you'll see? You will see better retention, and you will see better recruitment. People want to be a part of something that has meaning. If they wanted to be a part of some politicized institution, they can join almost anything in our society now. Half these companies are acting this way. You have bureaucracies, you have education institutions, all that stuff's happening. Is there going to be one spot in America where the merit is what matters, where accomplishing the mission above all else is what matters? And when you have an opportunity for that, young people will gravitate towards it. So we have a mission that we need to accomplish. We will get it done. So what are we going to do coming in as Commander-in-Chief? First, we're going to recognize that this military has made mistakes in recent years. And one of the biggest mistakes they made was driving out perfectly capable service members due to the COVID-19 vax mandate. That mandate was a mistake. That mandate was wrong. That mandate was not based on scientific data. Military personnel who meet standards were probably at close to zero risk of significant COVID to begin with. Many of them had already had COVID and had natural immunity, but the mRNA shots were shown not to prevent the infection. and transmission of COVID. So you have individuals that had already had it, they didn't want to take the shot, and then they're being forced to take something that they don't want to take or perhaps potentially lose their career. So that was wrong. That was an example of civilians and political people bowing to the hysteria in society at the time about COVID and trying to jam that down the throats of our military service members. We are going to acknowledge that the military made a mistake. We are going to offer service members who were separated their jobs back, including with back pay. And I think that that's an important thing to do. Second thing is, we're going to make it very clear, lethality, readiness, and capabilities must trump political agendas like the Green New Deal. You put security first. You don't tell folks, operators, contractors, that they have to be more concerned with reducing emissions than they do with military effectiveness. We don't need military vehicles that run on electric. We need military vehicles that are going to be dependable, and that are going to get the job done. The more and more you inject this type of political agenda into military, you are giving China a competitive advantage. Do you think China is forcing their military vehicles or other things to embrace things like electric? Of course not, because they know it's not capable. They will do it if they think it's the right thing to do, but they're doing a coal plant every week they're adding in China. I mean, they're humming and humming. They're going to use whatever they need to get a competitive advantage over the United States. So don't sacrifice mission accomplishment at the altar of the gods of the Green New Deal. That will be over on day one. Third, we need to end social experimentation and woke ideology in the military. And that involves doing things like eliminating the DEI bureaucracy from the Department of Defense. We've leaned in on this in Florida. We've actually eliminated DEI at our public universities. I think it's been harmful at universities because I think it's balkanized students and it's caused them to focus more on identity rather than merit and achievement. But I think it's much more detrimental when you're talking about a military context, because you, by definition, are sacrificing some of your individuality to be able to join, because it's what the unit needs that is most important. And so what DEI is telling people to do is to elevate our differences, elevate different ethnicities, gender, race, you name it, and balkanize people and put them into different groups. That's not good for society, but it's definitely
all right, you're
not
listening
good
to
for
Florida
the
Governor
military.
Ron
So
DeSantis
war
speaking
fighting
live right now
Trump
in
identity
presidential
politics.
contender for
Spend more
2024
money
and looking for that Republican nomination there in Columbia, South Carolina. He's speaking, or rather announcing, his military policy, what he calls mission first. Essentially, some of that, what you have heard, was taking woke ideologies out of the military, taking ESG, DEI, those concepts, if you will, outside of the military. There again, speaking to those there in the Capitol in the Palmetto State. We'll continue to monitor this as this goes on throughout the broadcast.